reports of violent activities in our secondary schools with a teacher who was stabbed yesterday in a secondary school in Yaoundé. We also saw a video that went viral yesterday of a student molesting a female teacher. We're asking the question, what is not right with our secondary school? Is it the fact that our parents are not taking good care of molding their children in the fear of their peers, the elderly, and God, as well as the church that is failing in its role, or the disciplinary aspects of our respective schools that have been reduced? What is actually not right with our students, especially our secondary schools? Today is going to be the focus for tonight's edition of Prime. We are discussing this lone topic with the panelists who are already seated in the house with us. We have a lecturer who has a good mastery of working with students in some of our state universities. The focus is going to be on our secondary schools. Dr. Ako is in the house with us. Good evening, welcome.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine, Mr. Leo. Equally talking a very sensitive issue. A lot of Cameroonians have been worried, and I think more the Francophone subsystem of education has received more of this attack. We are equally thinking that the parents somewhere might have failed, and though everybody keep on blaming the school authorities, analysis made indicated that more than 80% of time spent by students is with the family, and that means that a lot and the majority of those forces, instructions, and even basic informal education should be given at home. Failure by parents, and today a more busy schedule in Cameroon where a lot of parents try to meet up with the financial, the moral, and even the material need of the family had left pupils and even families at their own call. I mean, a lot of children leave their homes without seeing their parents, and their parents come back home without seeing their children. A lot of those issues we have been complaining about, Parental brought up, and we said the basic unit of a country is the family. If the family is not well catered for, then obviously we borrow the words of things fall apart. And this is the present situation within the educational system in Cameroon.
Okay, we also are in the company of another person who works with students very closely. Though he is a politician, he is the Secretary General of the Popular Action Party, the PAP. Good evening, Fabrice Lena, and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening to my senior man, Aku Donako. Good evening to you, Mr. Tamai. Good evening to Dr. Belinda Babila, to those who just entered the country. I want to talk, Sir Zach, you're welcome. Uncle Zach, you're welcome. And Chidi Mokeme, you're welcome. I just wanted to use this opportunity to welcome you people and to greet my friend, Mr. Njium, who is also a teacher, to greet Mr. Njan Dennis, who is promoter of education, to greet all teachers out there in Cameroon, because I know it's not easy to hold a chalk, survive the pressure that is coming from the institution that you're teaching, the pressure that is coming from parents, the pressure from societal demand, the pressure from all sides, from the state, and especially the pressure from the state that is not accompanied by its accompanying measures. That is the reward, the normal reward that is supposed to be for teachers. And our society has become so polarized, so with a lot of polemics around the education sector, primary, secondary, right up to universities, for the simple fact that the education system is put to question. So I'm glad to discuss this topic this evening with noble men on the platform today, and I'm glad also to be your guest, Mr. Liu. I want to say hi to all Popular Action Party militants throughout the country.
Okay, we're also in the company of Tamai Jarvis. He is a journalist who works with Media Prime TV. We're glad to have you once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu, and special good evening to the peace-loving people of Wei Village and the people of North and Southwest region. We are caught in a fix. Martin Luther King talked about education, and we also have other scholars who have talked about education. And there is a popular quote that education without morals is like a ship without a compass, mere wandering to nowhere. Faced with this scenario, one is tempted to ask questions as of What is wrong as far as our schools are concerned? Is it at the level of the parents? Is it at the level of the schools? Is it at the level of the church? Is it at the level of the society? We are in a triple helix system where the parents, the school, and the society, which has a role to play. And when this triple helix system doesn't is not functional effectively, we are bound to see a collapse of the system. Just to let many people understand that it's a blame shared equally to both the parents, the teachers, the society. I remember in our good old days in 1993 or 95, when you come back from school, your neighbor has a role to play in disciplining you, even if your mother is not at home. But this is not the case now, in such a way that if someone is not at home, you have no right to talk to the child, and a parent will tell you that don't talk to my child, don't talk. So we're in a neighborhood in those days. When you see a neighbor, you are careful. It's like you have seen your father, so you are tempted not to do the things you ought to do. So it's a polarized world. As the debate moves on, we'll attempt answers to some of the things that we've seen as far as the secondary education system is concerned.
Okay, I'll start with you, Dr. Ako, who is not doing their job when you look at what is happening in our secondary schools. We have cases of students fighting, rampant fighting among students with knives. We have what happened yesterday is just an example of many other happenings in many schools across the nation. Who is not doing their job?
Yeah, I just want to think it's a tripartite obligations, tripartite in the sense that the parents within the family, the state, and somewhere the learners. The learners have been put to blame because a learner is thought to be a submissive individual because he receives instruction from the hierarchy. In fact, somewhere we were told of the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And again, you are even from the biblical saying that honor your father and your mother so that your days on earth will be longer. These are some of the principles that always give us an idea that once a person is only by age, not even your father or your mother, there is that courtesy within African culture that you don't speak back. And so as a child, you are bound to be submitted to everybody who is your elders, talk less of those who stand in a position of authority, those who are in a position of authority that even control or manage your being in schools. We were in one time put in a position that we were even unable to stand and speak or even stand in the same forum with a teacher, talk less of standing some few meters away from him. Once the teacher is coming, you find all the students dispersing to their various corners. Today, students or pupils have the courage to even stand and talk back, like you are talking of the recent photo where a female teacher was talking to a student and the student decided to talk back and let the madam do what she can do, and then she's standing in front of her now. Let her do what she can do.
I saw a video of a female student 2 weeks ago fighting
a bossa, and it gives us an idea equally that the new world, people call it the Android age, the Android world, that a lot of things, videos, movies have developed into a very hyper level. Everybody have access to certain type of video now throughout the world that we don't even have here. It is again funny that people go to school with knives, and when you look at the knives, you realize that these knives are basic kitchen knives. When you look at the nature of knives used, not like special knives that were made for those purposes. It's like some people just dive or dodge into their kitchen, their mother kitchen, then picks up a knife from the kitchen, knowing that is an instrument. And we ask instrument on what basis? A lot of these ideas, I said, we have to get into it because there is a minimum of control we are going to do, like what goes on in other countries. On the side of the parents, I'm telling you, people will tell you too that the state is not treating the parents well. A lot of parents who are workers with the government or in other parts, those who are in the private sector, again, the situation is worrying that people have to put in a lot of hours at work to come out with the minimum of what they take home with. That has caused a lot of parents to even prepare to sleep at job site. Sleeping at job site means you leave, we're in Douala, for you to get to your office, you have to leave the house at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, some of the children are already on for school, and you people have little or no time. The parent is going, the father or mother is going to come back home at about 9:30 or 11 p.m. when the children have all gone to bed. You ask yourself, is there any time that a father and the children can share, like in the old tradition, that everybody takes breakfast on the table and everybody takes supper on the table. And at that particular moment, you find that warming contact between parents and their children. It is no longer the case. Everybody eats as is different as depending on the time you arrive home. And this is what has become of basic home ethics. We are equally thinking that no matter the busy schedule, morally correct, a father is equally supposed to define some basic time he spends at home. You can have some time just to rest and maybe watch over your children and see how they behave. Those of us who are within the school milieu, something we haven't, maybe when we have come in contact, is that a lot of parents don't even know their children. You are with a child in the house, you don't even know the person you're having. We have a lot to do. Children leaving school and ended up not arriving in school. The father is at home knowing that the child is in school, and the teachers are in school thinking that the child is at home. When we do the control, like you see, some mothers too have given right that today you don't control the children as you think you could. We imagine, I believe it was in Yaoundé, that a mother went on to attack the teacher that used a bit of force on the child, because flogging in an African context is part of discipline, because the Bible recognizes that spared the rod and spoiled the child. So which means that a bond of human right on this other part of the country, and think west or east of the Mongo, has given us an idea that it is difficult for a teacher to beat a child. And so I grew up with that character, telling you that my mother has never beaten me. Who are you to even touch me? Then you have such words regularly. Some you don't even shout. Some have gone to a level that they say, don't even shout to me. You are talking to a student is telling you that you should not shout at him. That if you are talking to him, talk to him calmly. Meaning he gives you the nature of what talked, the level you, the teacher, are supposed to take to him. It is, I said, it's a tripartite old game. The coming of human rights and insertion by government into academic curriculum have really fragilized the position of teachers. Okay. What we call surveillance general now remain just puppets. They are just leaders who are bound to be, and then maybe take the small allowances they receive from the government as the appointment is coming from the ministry.
Good evening to you, Nde Livanus, and to you, Kai Justin Nong. To say greetings to our sister Daisy, who is at home. Celestine Fuka, good evening to you. Fondong Richard Celestine, and to Deaconess Nge, my classmate at GBHS. Womb Julius Chofo, good evening to you. Nanje Jana, good evening to you. CBDM Pekin, always watching and insulting. Good evening to you. We always love you. And not forgetting you, Ngwa Godwin. Yes, who is not doing the job in Cameroon?
Mr. Alio, I will look at this issue of violence in schools in the aspect of failure of a certain principle. Okay. That if it could be effectively implemented, we will not have had, or will not be having, the level of violence we are having today. I'm talking about the principle of rigor and moralization. And this rigor and moralization is supposed to be doctrine of the party in power, which is supposed to be inculcated into the education system, be it the Anglophone subsystem or the Francophone subsystem. When we were young, and in the days of the Youth Day that we are realizing what it is today, the 20th May, we used to be singing this song, Youth Today, Future Leaders of Cameroon, and so on and so forth. We had in us that fear, that notion that going to school means being a temporal prisoner. That is what our parents used to tell us. Like when you are going to school, the essence of you wearing a uniform is to identify you in a certain class of people, still dependent on other class of people. The two dependent people are your parents, the teachers, and the elderly ones. Your parents are your informal teachers who are at home, God-given. Your teachers in school are your former teachers who are teaching you in class and are also part of your parental nourishment and nurture process. And then we now have the elderly people in the society, which you meet maybe in ceremonies and so on and so forth. What is the doctrine? The morality here is to stipulate the ethics and the basic principles of the society, where anybody who is above you intellectually, academically, by age, by the very virtues of our societal norms as Africans, you have to respect those people and not to even dare to challenge them. Now, by rigor means that those standing in front of you do not have to compromise their position by whatsoever thing that comes along. What has caused the failure and the destruction of rigor and moralization? Nowadays, in metropolitan towns like Yaoundé, Douala, and all the like I always cite, because I have been teaching in Yaoundé since 2015. I have taught in Tem Anglo-Saxon College, in Bodio Bilingual College, in Gopal Bilingual International Complex, in Tristan Bilingual International Complex. In some of these schools, I have been in the capacity of Dean of Studies, others as principal, others as a mere teacher. And what I came to realize is that most of the time, as a young teacher, you encounter situations of students who have already had it in mind that teachers are poor people.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
That teachers are poor people. Now, when they have it in mind that teachers are poor people and they are coming from a rich home, their parents are actually okay with them to arrange from time to time good amount of money and give to them, to go and give to teachers in such a way that they can have all the discriminatory favors they can have in terms of marking exam, in terms of following up, in terms of. And now this is where the rigor and moralization start breaking. Why is it that break up? Because there's already discrimination at the level of the school, which is visible to all other students and everyone. Because a school is a system with input, processes, and output. It's a complete system where inside this system they are dealing typically with human beings. I'm talking about the technical aspects of school. And when this happens, the next thing is that when that student will be put in the condition of discomfort by the very teacher who has been collecting money from the student, then the respect disappears. At the level of the government, what are the measures they have taken so far? No measures. Because they are the very persons who are unable to pay teachers. And then they are the very person putting teachers in the tight corner to become beggars to students. The government. Because if government do not give the money of teachers, teachers will not be in that kind of, because teachers, according to
all the schools you cited are private schools, and
yes,
we know that people make hundreds of millions from private schools.
That's not true.
Is it government that is?
That's not true. Let me tell you the system. One of the highest sector they are exploiting teachers here in Cameroon is private schools.
Exploited by who?
Exploited by proprietors. Because proprietors function in a laissez-faire system.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's a proprietor.
Proprietors exploit teachers because they pay huge amount of money to obtain authorization, creation, GCE centers, which are not fulfilling the normal conditions of obtaining those documents. And then now in return, like any other business person, keeping pedagogy aside, now functioning like a business person, want to extract this money back from parents and students. And then now poorly paying teachers. You will see a proprietor will tell you that negotiate the PA salary money of an advanced level teacher for 1,000 francs PA. And so on and so forth. Now, this is because when government delegates come for inspection, what they call inspecteur, the rest, the delegation, the enseignement secondaire, and so on and so forth, when they come, these guys are given swollen envelopes. And when they are given these swollen envelopes, what next? They don't follow up anything. They don't take any report, since it is an extremely laissez-faire system of do what you want, in as much as it does not touch the political aspect and the power of the people that be. You destroy the society's morality. You destroy, and all these things is in the eyes of the tender ones, the younger ones, and they grow with that notion of I can do what I can do and go with it if I have the money, if I have the connection, which is necessary for me to survive. So these are the basic things that is giving these children a lot of power to do whatsoever thing they want to do.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. That's an interesting topic. Discipline is dead. I think discipline should be reinforced at home. Parenting doesn't end with providing needs. Madam Bessem, parents have a lot to do. Okay, good evening to you, Madam Bessem, contributing to this topic for tonight. Many persons are concerned with the rule that parents are supposed to do. They think that parents have abandoned that rule of taking care of their children. I think that the teachers should work the miracle.
It's sad, especially when being at the university milieu, I see that parents think because they pay a certain amount of money to schools, especially private schools, and they believe that it is a responsibility of the teachers to instill morality, sanctity, decorum in that student, and at the same time instill the knowledge that they are supposed to give. We understand that in schools we have holistic education, and holistic education comes with a price, and it also comes with a certain level of responsibility. And parents themselves have, like I said, they have a lot of blame when it comes to this aspect, because some time ago we experienced where a military officer went to Bafusam and got a teacher were beaten, and the teacher collapsed, and a female teacher. Until date, nobody knows what happened. And at the end of the day, when a parent goes to school, I've seen situations in schools, especially in this Douala, when parents drive their cars and go in front of the gate, and when the principal say you are late, the parent will tell the child, I late Duseman, let's take less. And when you say that in front of a child who is getting into a school that's supposed to be disciplined, what morality are you giving to that child? You're telling the child that don't bother. That man, as Fabrice said, cannot put food on his table. Don't bother. Just go and get the knowledge and do whatever you want to do. We have the resources. I've seen cases where you hear a student will tell you, do you know who my father is? Do you know what my father can do? And these parents to come, instead of them to discipline the children, they come and take the side of the children in front of these children and the teacher. And what do you expect? You cannot give what you don't have. The students simply inculcate this and go beyond. Another aspect we witness in schools, especially in parenting, as far as this is concerned, is the aspect of PTA. When you call parents for PTA, they don't even come. Gone are those days when we used to have effective PTA, Parents-Teacher Association, where you see your parents will come to school and will receive all the complaints from the teachers, from the principals, and there's a long list that is read that this child is like this, is like this, is like this. And during the PTA meeting, they are subdivided into category. Class A, your hall is this, parent with children with class B, your hall is this, such that they have a one-on-one contact. Let me shock you that in the United States, there's still that level of parenting where parents come to school. There's a PTA, there's a Parents' Day. We have a Parents' Day in the United States where parents go to school and interact with the teachers with what is known as a school board meeting, and when they interact with teachers and give feedback as of what they think their children are learning from school, and the teacher in return gives feedback on what they think the children are learning from home, which contradict what they are supposed to do. In this shared feedback mechanism, it gives the parent and the teacher a knowledge about how to handle the situation of this kid. The parent leaves the school fulfilled, knowing that he knows what the child is doing in school and can correct it at home. The teacher leaves that meeting fulfilled, knowing that, okay, this is what the parent expects he or she to do to her kid, and it is a shared knowledge. But in Cameroon, it's different, where parents just ask, when is your PTA? They just send a driver, go and drop him off, and you will write a note that bring your parents to school. And that note, when you write bring your parents to school, you'll be shocked that they will tell you my parents are not coming, they are too busy. And sometimes those notes are very important because the teacher wants to explain some hidden secret about this child to the parent, and the children are closer to the parents. Remember, in our good old days, we used to believe so much in our teachers that you see your father coming to school, you just start crying because your father will come and report you to your teacher to beat you. But these days is the reverse, because when you go and you touch a child in school, you will see the next day the parent comes to school to shout at you, and you ask yourself, what discipline do you intend for this child? I believe that also the government has to put in strong mechanisms in such a way that, like Dr. Ako said, culture differs, and there is a need for us to get a particular culture and look at how that fits into our context. The one that fits into our context, we make good use of it. Whether we like it or not, corporate punishment changed a lot of us. all those who are even talking against corporate punishment, it had a lot of impact, a lot of effect. It is time good enough for the government to consider deterring factor. If a parent goes and assault a teacher in school, there should be those mechanisms that should punish that parent dearly. If you go and attack a teacher in school, you should be greatly punished like somebody who has committed a greater offense. In this regard, it will reduce that parent invading schools too, because their children too are similarly punished. The same vein, when a teacher assault a student in a kind of excessive manner, there should be a punishment in such a way that the exam managed. And above all, we are in a system that seemingly gratify these things, because if there is a deterring factor where students are dismissed from school, like in university, where if you are dismissed from this school, from this university because of examination fraud, you may not write that exam until after 3 years in whatever university. There should be that digital mechanism whereby students, if you are dismissed in school A, and your name is sent to the GCE board, whether you like it or not, there's a certain number of years that you must have served your punishment before writing an exam. And if that is done, it reduces the level of violence. Because if a child knows that if you dismiss me at school A, at Form 4, and I cannot, if I go to school B, I'll still not write the GCE after 3 years, there's no need for me to be violent. I'll be sober. So there's a need for us to look at how can we discipline children in such a way that if they are dismissed from school A, they don't just go and change school B and continue. Because a child will tell you, if they dismiss me here, do you know how many times I've been dismissed in Douala? They dismiss me, my father will just take me and put me in this school. But it is not supposed to be like that. We should have a digital mechanism where names, when you are dismissed, it enters the secondary educational milieu, and they have a mechanism where it gets to the GCE board. So it helps. It
gets to the GCE board. We're talking about discipline here. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and the crew. Based on the topic, I think the parents should be blamed based on how they bring up their children. Mr. Amma from Lolodorf. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Good evening, Mr. Liu. That's a very good topic today. I think parents are the ones to play the first role in this violence, because they ought to have enough time to speak to the children, get to know their problems, above all the facts that subjects like citizenship, religious studies, which give morals, ought to be compulsory. I think this subject should be taken seriously. Wilfred, writing from Boya, almost everybody thinks that the children, the parents are not doing the job. Are we expecting the children to play saints in school and not at home?
Somewhere instead we realize with a lot of families that the children instead play more saints at home, tend to be very violent in school. A lot of, that is why I said a lot of parents don't even know their children. They see their children very rarely. You go into a very big mansion or a quarter, the children have a room far off from where the parents are, which means that they come to the parlor only when their attention is needed. What they are doing in private at home, we are not even aware. Some even go as far as having PlayStations in their rooms. And those PlayStation games, we don't even know the type of games they are watching or playing with. This has given them a lot of that particular character. Some parents too, I'm saying that when we talk of discipline, like I quoted, that spare the rod and spoil the child. We have been used to. In fact, I used to even explain to some of my students that when we were in school, I'm talking of something of 1988, 1989, it was not easy for you to go to school without putting more than 3 trousers. We had putting on 3 trousers because we were already criminals before we even got to school. The teacher knows already that the people he's handling are more than even military men. So when we prepare ourselves to school, we have a foam that we put in our buttock before even wearing my pants. But we were thinking that we're more intelligent than the teacher. And the teacher will command you to take down your pants and remove the material in you. Which means psychologically, we know that the school was an environment of discipline. So you are submitted to the order of the teacher, no matter your size. No matter your size, I can imagine that before class 7, there were boys as old as 23 and 25 in class 7. And these people submitted to the rules of the teacher. Today, what is embarrassing is that you find very young students, not even up to 16 or 15, misbehaving and trying they can fight the teacher. We realize that sometime too, one of the causes of violence in school is being perpetrated by the very and the most dull ones. So poor academic performance have been like a failure in the mind of those who perpetrate violence in school. Poor academic performance has caused a lot of peers, those who live around certain group, to become what we call bullies. A lot of bullies, when you realize they are always the very less performant student in campus. We might not say that they are very dull, but then academic might not have been their portion. A lot of people have failed to equally know that education might have not been meant for all, and parents need to detect and know that very fast. The fact that you have to go to school and understanding the level of a particular child will help us to assist that particular child at home. Homes that discover who their children are, you will get there, you realize that they make sure that such a child is not left vacant for you to even think of another thing. The moment you leave school at 3, you come home at 4, the home teacher is coming. By the time the home teacher is leaving, he's leaving you with an assignment, and that assignment must be done right at home. While doing home classes, you are being punished by the same home teacher. But now you got into other standard, you find a friendly discussion with some parents and mother on how you should go very calmly, very slowly with this guy, when the teacher knows the level of the guy. There are people, even at the level of the university today, we find time to expel some out of classes. There are some, we send them out of our own classes forever because the particular character has been continuous, and you should not corrupt others. When such orders are made, it becomes very, very, very pertinent. We should not also forget that today alcohol has become very available, which means some students will tell you at home that Daddy, I don't drink this, but I'm telling you, for those of us who are in the university, students spend more money in beer than their parents do. And at times we try to find out how do they make such huge amount of money they spend on alcohol. Some parents don't even know that just looking, in fact, there was an Italian criminologist, Grosso, said when you look at the criminal closely, when you look at the face of an individual who is a criminal, there is a possibility for us to use the prevention protection principle, that prevention is better than cure. You can start sanctioning a child knowing very well that the way I look at you, their character at home might be representing something in school. How many parents even equally take the pain to go through their children's back? Every father or mother has a duty to inspect. A lot of those perpetrating violence have always indicated that during school hours, they have other comfortable grounds where their character are instead drilled. Better there, meaning the ringleader of such a group has a way they do it. They come to school and say, no, today they are not attending classes. They have an extra meeting somewhere. Maybe they're in a games park or whatsoever. They play a lot of things. So there are things parents can discover. If you realize your child copies notes always, like in the university, somebody passes his time photocopying notes that others have copied. It is but simple for you to know that such a child was not in class. And where has he been if he has not been in the classroom? There is what we call home discipline. And we are thinking that the children too, I'm telling you today, we have received a lot of divorces in court. Experience have shown that a lot of children who are violent in school might have been victims of violence at home. That the character of the parents, what we call adult delinquency, equally affect a lot of these children while in school. We need to reduce the rate. You cannot be counseling a child not to drink or smoke when the father smokes more than even in fact, the father is the highest drunkard in the quarter and the one that smokes most. One day the child will try to see if that cigarette, how does it taste? A father's example, a parent example is a child handbook. And these are some of the things. The common violence with neighbor, that you pass your time, mother or father quarreling with neighbor, equally drills some children to have this violent character. There are a lot of things when we do that at home, even talking to your wife. If you have a character of shouting at your wife in front of your children, you are giving those children that particular disease, that anytime they can shout at whosoever where they are. That's why you get to some honorable and respectable home. A father slaps the wife. Yes, they call it domestic violence. He might have slapped the wife in the room. The mother ends the shouting in the room. Some mother want to equal at time again, present to the children that the father is very wicked. And then at the aspect of saying the father is wicked, what do? You are training and drilling the children to become more violent against their father. And this character may go consequentially and may equally affect other grounds. A lot of this, Mr. Leo, there is a duty on the part of families as far as the well-being of the children in school and out of school is concerned.
For example, a child fights at a public tap and is scolded at by a grandmother, and the mother comes to quarrel the grandmother. It is terrible. Why do they pamper children to the extent that a child becomes a tyrant? Any parent who neglects discipline should be ready. Lastly, some parents are busy chasing money. Children grow up very loose with the influence of terrible peers. Discipline starts from home. Okay, yes, many persons actually think of the home. Good evening, Mr. Liu and entire panel. I think in as much as the discipline has a very important role to play in order to remedy the degree of violence in our schools, parents have the greatest role to play. Home training from birth is a sole responsibility of the parents. Celestine is writing from Bermuda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Those students who exhibit violence are not even interested in studying. So whether they are sanctioned not to write the GCE or not is none of their business. Eno Mulubat is writing from Bermuda. Good evening to you, Eno. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I think the blame of violence in secondary schools goes to the parents, and government parents nowadays pamper their children too much and fail to discipline them. Imagine me as a teacher during opening day in a boarding school, taking off mirror from the school bag of a student, and the mother shouted at me and said her monthly salary can pay me for a whole year in front of the students. Ferdinand is writing from Yaoundé. That is not a government school, a boarding school. Okay. Good evening to you all. Poor governance and policy is as a result of this violence in schools, and this can only be improved upon by the revision of the moral and when all citizens are repentance of law without exception. Thanks, Brother Henry, writing there. Okay. This one reads, good evening, Mr. Liu. Mr. Liu, some of these teachers involved themselves in illegal relationship with female students and even make friends with the male ones so they can run the line for them. Okay, run the line for them. To an extent, some of these teachers have degraded themselves in front of these students. Collins, writing from Tico, okay, use a male student to run a line for you to get a female student. Good evening to you all. In my opinion, the high increase of violence in Francophone regions is due to illegal drugs sold to minors. Jackson is writing from Douala. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Years back, if you see a parent in school, is to come and report the child to be punished because the fear of the teacher was the beginning of wisdom. But today, if you see a parent in school, is to come and fight the teacher. Parents are to be blamed. I am Mr. Tedder, writing from Tombe. Everybody thinks the parents. Yes, but how much time do parents actually dedicate to see into it that the morals of their children is looking to?
Yeah, I think many people are right to say that the parents are to be blamed, or there is, first of all, that lack of parental, proper parental care for their children or well-being from home. But I will look at it in the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. The bigger picture is the evolution and emancipation of our society. Because when a society is evolving and emancipating with all the new innovative ideas of Google, Android phone, internet, everything that comes with these innovations, there is no corresponding innovation too with policies that restructure societal norms. Let me take a simple example. There are issues in the early 2000s. I'm talking of between 2000, the year 2000 to 2010, that could not be heard of in school. That could not be heard of in school. Like a student going to school with knife, a student stabbing, a student doing those kind of things that we are seeing nowadays. It was unheard of. And even if you hear that kind of case, it will be too rare. But now the percentage has increased, it's so rampant because as the society is going forth, we are not carrying out checks to solve societal problem. Unemployment. Many students already know that education in Cameroon does not have any future. Whether you go to school or you don't go to school, that will not make you have money. And that's why you see a lot of young people like my co-panelist said. They are not even interested in getting discipline, but they are interested in having money as fast as possible, because most of them will tell you that when I have money, I will call the teachers to come and teach me in my house. And that's why you see, if you go to most of these urban centers, Douala, Yaoundé, Boya especially, you see the young boys of 16, 17, 18, all of them are scammers. Why are they abandoning school to do scamming? And then most of them that are scammers have a particular appearance. It's as if, I don't know if that appearance is designated to them. You must go and do dada, you must do some kind of things.
Are they not coming from homes?
They are coming from homes, Mr. Liu.
But what do the parents think about this?
Because we should not forget societal constraints. There are children. How many children are born out of wedlock? How many children are orphans? How many children do not even have people that will take care of them? Because I've been in conditions where I'm teaching a group of students, and I take time to listen to their stories. You will hear terrible stories. There are some children that their mothers give birth to them with a different father and take them to the home of another man, and the man is openly discriminating in terms of the treatment that he gives to these children. And then at the end, you see divorce and all the like. Some of these things are what we call societal constraint, because the parents are seeking to survive. The working conditions where they are working is difficult. They are putting the pressure also on work. They don't really have time to follow up their children, because some of these things are really contradictory. Like, you want to allocate time for you to follow up your children. You see that it is not also going in line with the small job that you have that is permitting you to pay the school fees, and so on and so forth. One philosopher said that putting birth to a human being, the human being is already into existence. In as much as you have the responsibility in seeing the development of that human being has a greater responsibility of making himself useful to the society by respecting the norms around. There are children that have grown in violent homes, but they are very cultured, principled. They have behavioral aptitude. They are intact. They don't insult. They don't do anything. So most of these things is just a societal things that the society have normalized. Why do I call it things that society have normalized? You see a lot of schools where you are a discipline master. You want to put a certain rule there for children not to do like this, and the proprietor, because he wants his money, he tell you that no, that's not the objective. And then we normalize things that are not supposed to be normalized, and we give. It is a two-way thing. Parents have their responsibility, but we should think of those thousands of children that they are, first of all, being born in difficult conditions, that they are maybe orphans, that they are street children. In the case of today, nowadays, that they are IDPs, that they are maybe from circumstances of violence. What do you talk of those ones that maybe they are from the crisis in the east or the north, that they have run maybe with train and come down to these southern zones and maybe struggle to go to school? They don't yet understand some of these things. There is a lot that our society needs to do, because there are children as young as 10 years, 15 years that need psychosocial support. They have suffered from stigma, societal stigma, serious stigma, that they really need people to counsel. But we don't even have counseling center. We don't have those centers that children can run to, even under ministries that are supposed to handle these things, that could support schools and children.
They have guidance counselors in the schools. I spoke with 5 of them. How effective?
And
in school, I spoke with 5 of them today who say students will not even come to them, and even when they talk to students look at them as if they are jokers. Good evening, my brothers. State, I wish to ask these questions. Why is moral instructions taught in the English system of education, yet not taught in the Francophone system, but still is not considered as a subject? And have you witnessed that this act perpetrated by students is rampant from a particular region? Is John watching from Douala? Good evening. Please, I would not want to try to polarize ourselves here. We should not stigmatize some people. There is violence everywhere. We have seen the heads of persons chopped off arms of people chopped off, not from a part of a country. We all are violent, so we should not stigmatize others. If not, we will not see the violence that we are seeing in our backyard. Good evening, Mr. Liu. In as much as we point it towards the parents, we should also know that there are some parents that are doing their maximum best for the children, but influence from bad friends and addiction to drugs and strong alcoholic drinks. With that, some of them are violent even to their parents, trying to correct them. Can you imagine that a child will leave the house that he or she is going to school, then go to stores, strong drinks when classes are going on in school? You see some young boys and girls in the bush having sex or doing abominable things. In that case, what should the parents do now? Mr. Leo, please, you people should say something concerning this. By Levis writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Levis. Thank you for understanding me, my brother. We should promote peace and not division. Good evening, Mr. Kum. It's an interesting topic which needs to be educated on TV and radio. Parents are the cause of the violence of students in school. We need the government to bring back flogging in schools. Asong is writing from mile 16, my own place out there in Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the entire crew. There are two key factors that influence the behavior of learners towards the teachers. The gift of Cameroon is greatly responsible, or the government, you wrote the gift, is responsible as it has made the teacher the poorest set of civil servants in the country. In Cameroon, we have students who are far more richer than some teachers, owing to the fact that teachers' salary cannot be maintained, their family, and they turn to be beggars. Second, the parents contribute with the poor upbringing of their children. Students even tell us, teach me and see what my father would do to you. If you beat me, I will come and press you in the night with witchcraft. My father is far more richer than you. Look at old shoes and dresses that you are putting on. The above factors have reduced a teacher to zero in Cameroon, making the teachers' standards to fall drastically, and so students even beat and kill teachers in the country. Elvis is writing from Bafusam. Good evening to you, Elvis, and also to you, Sue Remy, watching us out there, and to you, Colonel Dinga Jean-Claude, who works at the Special Criminal Tribunal out there in Yaoundé. How would you rate the aspect of discipline in our secondary schools today compared with what obtained in the past? I'm talking about our discipline masters.
We are in a different landscape where the social media has come, and schools have not adapted to looking at how they can help to sensitize people. Discipline is not just done physically. There's also what we call the mental discipline. There's also what we call the psychological discipline. And especially in the schools that we look around, most of the discipline, people focus more on corporate. Yeah, if we are going to corporal punishment, but what of the other non-corporal punishment? How many times do our discipline masters pick sessions to educate the youth about the values of the society? You see, we understand that there is a challenge. Very few persons go to meet guidance counselors. Since they go to meet, very few persons get to meet guidance counselors. The discipline master themselves have to update or be innovative in such a way that they need to hold constant session, maybe once in 2 weeks, to evaluate the situation of the school and educate the students about the need, because it's sometimes not all about force, but about counseling, talking to the students about the importance of them respecting the rules and regulations. The discipline these days, where we have on discipline masters, most of them are just there to eat their money and to collect their endowment. They don't do the job. They feel like the system as it was in those days, so it is today. It is today. We have, the children are fragile. The children are also exposed to others, new technology, new media. some of the things that we were not able to do is because of the fact that we didn't have that certain level of exposure. Because if we had a certain level of exposure, maybe we would have done similar things as we are doing now. Sleeping with teacher and student is not common, is not something that's starting today. It existed even way before when we had a class 7 or the standard where you see big girls in class 7 and still getting in relationship, sexual relationship with teachers and vice versa. So it's not strange. But how can we reduce this? We can reduce this if the civil society, Mr. Leo, again, let me come to that. Civil society is not helping schools to carry out their responsibility, because civil society have that solemn role to constantly organize, talk, and educate the public or carry out sensitization campaign about violence in school. But we don't see the civil society taking up this initiative. All what we see them is the donation of bags of rice, visiting of IDPs and orphanages. Yes, is very important, but also they should take care of, they should look at sensitization in schools. Before diverting to your topic, I want to give this scenario. Our parents, we used to spend much time with our parents because when we come back from school, we go to the farm. And when we go to the farm, you still have a lot of time to talk with your mother, and mother gets to assess you. But these days, you don't have that. And also, when holiday comes out, you have the entire time to go to the farm. But we have holiday classes. A child leaves the school and to come for 3 months holiday to spend with the parents, instead of that parent to have a one-on-one discussion with live with the child to understand, immediately that father takes that child, sent to a holiday class, and that child spent 3 months holiday class and continue leave the holiday class back to the classroom and don't have that interaction with parents to know whether your child is this way or is this way or this way. I think holiday classes should be encouraged, but to a certain level, maybe we can change the system of holiday classes. Why not send them to learn special things like hairdressing, tailoring, and the rest? Still in that process, they will, the person in charge of them will come and tell you that this is your child, when he walks like this is how he walks. It's easier than the school where you send that child to holiday classes. I think holiday classes has contributed greatly to to reduce the interaction between a father and a child at home. Because look at the 3 months period holiday class, even 2 weeks period holiday classes. Now, this child only gets to have this liberty at university. That is why you see university level, their own level of insubordination is different. It's different in terms of scamming and the rest. Sometimes you cannot control. There are factors you cannot control at that level. So my plea is that parents should reduce the level of which they send their children to holiday classes and spend much time this time, at least even a month. And
at least that's the period during which they are supposed to spend much time
with the parents.
Are the children necessarily more intelligent because attend this holiday classes 3 months?
That is what I don't know. Maybe Dr. Ako, who is a pedagogue, can best explain this. But my own view observing this situation is that this holiday classes.
No, you can't say, Dr. Ako, we see the output.
No,
the students
I can just talk from a lay perspective, but a specialist like him, I can probably diagnose it. Because from my own perspective, if you spend 3 months, when I was in Munya, we leave the classes, we go to our homes, we spend that 3 months with our mother or our uncle somewhere, and this uncle gives feedback to our mothers. But these days is not the case. Holiday classes.
It's a two-way thing, Mr. Tamai. Why do I say it's a two-way thing? It depends on the activity of the parent. Because there are parents who are readily willing to spend that time with their children during those summer holidays, the long holidays. But there are other parents that the nature of their job is still such that holiday or no holiday, they have no time for their children. So it's a two-way thing. Now you see that at first, most of the time during holidays, parents will send their children maybe to some other people who are free, village usually, generally, to go and learn culture, go and learn the mother tongue, go and learn tradition, go and learn some of these things. But now, maybe talking from the perspective of Anglophone regions where it's affected, most of these parents now are forced to keep their children this way. And sometimes they are not even in control of the children because they are involved in different activities. But I have seen that the tendency and the culture is different in the center region where I have been teaching children, because most of the time during holidays, these children are still there doing 1 or 2 activities, and they involve in a lot of illicit activities, because the tendency of going for holiday for students who school inside their own, they back to the periphery villages of the central region is very low. So it is a two-way thing, and one of the things that caused it for me is that attitude that parents feel that their job is more important than the upbringing of their children, and that's why most parents cry. I have been in a school where I was dean of study, and the proprietor is having children that come to his office and steal money there. His own children come and steal money there, and then the man is crying. You see? So he's looking at his legacy and crying. And then when I was in the office as a young guy, while I was in university level 3, managing and struggling to manage school and at the same time go to school, the guy looked at me and said, "Oh, my son, if you were my son," I'm just imagining, because I have done everything for these children to inculcate this spirit of leadership as young people, so that they will take over this thing. But look at their own interest is only money, 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 money. Where are they going to? But he also confessed that he did not have time with them, because it was a matter of sending the child to a big name school. Yes, sending the child to a big name school.
Have a greater route.
When they send to the big name school, they pay all the big money. When the children even come back, they don't have time, all this stuff. So there is a lot of review that need to be done at the level of parents, mentoring and nurturing children at home, at the level of the education sector and the education ministries, be it basic, secondary or higher, at the level of reviewing that contact with parents and students, okay, and so on.
Good evening to you and the panelists in the studio. Mr. Liu, it's an interesting program. I want to extend a special greetings to Dr. Ako, my Elvis Ka, watching from mile 16 Boli Famba. Okay, Ka, they call you Perika. Good evening to you, my brother. Good evening. Mr. Kum, the panelists, the teacher and student relationship milieu has a big problem today, because most of the violence in schools on teachers is caused by same teachers themselves. In the old school year, students and teachers' violence was difficult to hear, so school authorities to the existence of dating the same female students who is dating a male student. Bisong is writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Parents are responsible for their children's behaviors at home and in schools. Jones is writing from Ndu, and do not very good stories from there, especially with the attacks that are taking place in Ndu. We pray that God help restore peace in that land of Ndu. Good evening, sirs. The issue being discussed is quite multifaceted. Parents have greatly neglected their God-given responsibilities and about the schools. One of my greatest embarrassments was seeing alcohol beer sold in a school canteen and teachers sit there drinking. Wow, also their inattention to dress code, especially among female students in some of our schools, is proof to the inattention to other important aspects. God help us. Rita, writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Most of these children who perpetrate violence in school, even to an extent of using dangerous objects, the teachers are at times sent by their parents. A child complains to the parents back at that my teacher scolded at me at school for nothing. The parent will indirectly tell the child that if he tried that again, warn him. A child stabbed a teacher here in Bafia with a knife sent by the parent. Just imagine a child in class 6. Amal Alassa Mume, writing from Bafia. Okay. Now let's look at this aspect of the right of a child. This is a concept that is brought into not only Cameroon in Africa, and almost everybody says, I have my right, I know my rights, so you don't have to do this. Even the parents say, my children are not supposed to be touched because they have the right.
Yeah, it is, again, I have said several times, there are certain rights that were not made for Africans.
Okay.
Certain rights that were taken from geographical environments far from Africa, and which we think that we can globalize them. Every sector in the world, every part in the world, within every continent, there are parts of cultures and rights that are peculiar to that area, and what may be a right in the United States must not necessarily be a right in Africa. And we need to know that. So when we talk of homosexuality, it is not a right in Africa. When we talk of lesbianism, people should know, or whatsoever we call man to man or woman to woman, you realize it's not a right in Africa. That's why a lot of governments are resisting. But some governments have equally, shamelessly accepted. When you accept such standard, it will obviously give us a negative impact in our community because some people are not well informed about it. People will tell you that the right to hold a gun, which is announced by the United States Constitution, is the basic right to all Americans to hold guns. But can that right equally be a right in Africa. Yes, every father, every child has a right. The right here is the right to education. And the children have equally forgotten that Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, everywhere we were born free, but everywhere we live in chains. The chains are the limits to the rights that each and every individual enjoy. The beginning of your right is the end of another person, and where your rights end is the beginning of another person, which means that the rights we enjoy today will equally have a greater impact if we respect one golden principle: do to others what you like others to do to you. Can you really talk to your mother? It is normal that today we have witnessed children abandoning 1,000 francs, 2,000 francs, 500 francs for money or pocket allowance because they think the mother or the father is not giving enough. These are characters we did not see in the past. And what do we see? What is the response? Meaning, a child has the right to money. He has a right to food. But it was not a culture of the Africans. A child must learn to eat at home and even trek to school until he comes back, then he eats again from the mother's pot. The moment you give the child the feeling that he has more better right than you don't have the level of life to give to the child. You make the child to believe that it is equally his right to ask for money. One day, you will not have that money, and that child will use that same circumstance against you. A lot of this thing we talk of rights. I said human right. The right to education is a basic right. The right to food is a basic right. But remember, we might not also give the same level. What becomes of poverty-infested homes? How will such children claim of the right to food, where they know normally that in their home they eat just once a day, or others struggle to have 2 meals a day? That means that the children of that particular home will not be capable of exercising their own rights. The right, or the wide word, so people will tell you, the wide attachment to what we call human right, that everybody was born free to do whatsoever he wants with his life, except he does not take the life of another. Actions at times affects others without necessarily the other part. I mean the physical act. We need to prepare other human beings psychologically. Students have right, is the right to go to school, and the right to go to school, what we call academic deontology. Deontology in education demands equally that a certain level of discipline be instituted. You should not come to class after the teacher. You should be evaluated or be present in class. Participation in class is an act of... There are students, you simply ask them to answer a question, and it's like you are embarrassing them. You will find them telling you that, please say, you're embarrassing me for asking the same child to answer a question in class. How is that an embarrassment? Meaning that my hand was not up. He was not willing to answer. So you have no right to point him to answer the question. A lot of these things, we should equally know that when we get to school, the moment you cross the gate, it's a different ball game. You are not in your house. I can imagine that it becomes again very good that a lot of parents in the past could send their children to what we call public school. Today, with the upright, or what I call the explosion of private schools, has caused a lot of havoc. A child can be dismissed somewhere and taken to another school because he has the right and will still go to school. One of the rights of the children, and which children or parents must inform them, is that they have the right to education, but not the right to take decisions of their own while in school. We talk of more this, you'll find that more private school will tend to give such right to the students, but the public schools, it is a different ballgame. They believe that the student-teacher relationship in private institution is greatly very high. In public schools, it is really an issue of concern. You consider the secondary school like that of Lycée Daido, or somewhere where we come from, GBHS or JHS Manthi or GHS Moliko, or you find yourself in JHS Limbe, the response to discipline will not be the same like you might have been located in one of the private schools in town. These are the highly populated secondary schools in and around the country. Look at that, Lycée Bilingue d'Application in Yaoundé or Lycée Bilingue Essence. The rules will be different, which means that the government too, I'm telling you that it might not equally be a right, but that there is that aspect of proximity between student-teacher. In many advanced economies, they'll tell you the ratio of how many students per a teacher. Do we really have that here in Cameroon? Does it even exist? There are different rules applying to schools located in urban areas and schools located in suburban and rural areas. When you get through a lot of this, you realize that the issue of rights does not really count, because the person who considered to having rights, children have no rights, they are minors, and that the instructions, even their crimes, are suffered by their parents and their teachers in school. If they, during exams, this is why a lot of parents have even failed. When students of a particular school perform poorly in exams, the blame goes to who? You find parents telling you that in their school they don't teach. They don't teach. But when a child becomes very successful, what becomes of us? A lot of people start thinking that it was a success of the child. The parents stay at home, make parties, and a lot of wine and whiskey is being poured upon, and they celebrate. Nobody recognizes that such a duty, again, was the duty of the teacher. And so it is always very right for us to recognize that a child as a learner in African context have little or no right, and that those who cater for his education have a more better and a superior right. The parents and the teacher, and to some extent, the institution of the state have a better role to play.
Greetings, Prime, and the panelists say it's wacky to think that violence in school in Cameroon happens only in the French-speaking regions. Violence happens everywhere human beings inhabit. The first discipline a child receives is from the home. The first teacher of the child is the parent or guardians. Some violent children were actually not supposed to be in the school environment in the first place. Schools should also reinforce security, and students should be searched before entering the school campus. Never minimize the minutest act of violence from a child. You tolerate one, he or she graduates to the next. Okay, thank you, Suremi. Good evening. I'm Ngome Franklin Jikang, based in Tomber, Kupe Manenguba Division. Will wish to feed the station with information within my constituency, if it's okay by you people, sir. Ngome, can you just call me tomorrow morning? We discuss about that. Greetings to you, Mr. Liu, and your panelists. Pa Ngando Clement, watching closely with my daughter, Ngando Alexine, in Tasen neighborhood in Akwen. That's in Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Vanessa, writing from Lolodorf. Quite an interesting topic. Teachers have been reduced to nothing, especially those of us in the private sectors. We are being exploited by our proprietors and being underlooked by our students because they know we are very poor. Please, the government should do something about the minimum sum per subject. 1,000 francs per subject is too small for a secondary school teacher teaching an examination class. They should make us teachers have weight too, and they should implement beatings in schools. Students will look at your dressing and know how desperate you are, because we are being exploited. We eat puff-puff and beans every day in school. With all this, the students know we are not up to standard. Okay, quite pathetic there. Good evening. I think it's because the students doing these acts are not being punished. Ever since we started getting news of students being violent against teachers and following up the stories, nothing is always being done to the students. Let a means of serious punishment be devised for them, and others would see and not want to fall prey. This is Claudine writing from mile 4 in Limbe. Mr. Liu, Levis is back. Please help me ask Mr. Jarvis that what's going on with those parents who spend the holiday sometimes with the children at home, but those two still wayward because of their lust for worldly passions and environment influence. Even those who have deliberate stubbornness to do what they like, please, you people should say something about this so that those parents doing their best may develop a new strategy from points to see if they can have a change in their homes with their children. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Your topic today is very touching. I'm tempted to think that if the Bible was written in Cameroon, the government would have ordered for it to be revised, when the Bible clearly states that if the rod is spared, the child would be spoiled. The government of this country is ordering the abolition of corporal punishment in an environment that has an inherent laissez-faire attitude. From, say Ewen, writing from Douala. Mr. Liu, please answer me these questions. Can you shout at a child who threatens you with a knife and even tells you he will call the parents? Maybe the father is one of the big officials in the community, which you can lose your job. What will you do? Rena is writing from Wututu. That is why we're saying that parents should do something themselves. Let us look at the influence of social media. Some people think that it is doing so good to a child to have the social media, to have access to the phone. You buy the best phone to a child that is as young as from one child. You give it to them, not knowing that because according to you, the phone is there for them to do research. But that research on social media is like sending a child to read in an environment where there is a bar, there is a hotel, there is almost everything. That's social media, because you are wanting to read on Google, but there's Facebook, there's WhatsApp, there's almost everything around.
Yeah. No, Mr. Leo, it was in 2018 and 2019 that I thought this particular issue of influence of social media personally touched me, and I decided to come up with a program where in schools that I taught, I organize a kind of mentorship program with students to have a conversation with them on some kind of opinion poll on their best social media app, the time they spend there, and so on and so forth. I came to realize that the mind is so oriented to the negative effect social media apps than those ones that are educative. And even when they go to those ones that are educative, they are still going to seek for contents that are dangerous for their age. You see, before the advent of the Android television, the flat screen television and so on, we used to sit with our dad. I remember in the late 1990s, my dad and I, we don't miss Cameroon Calling. Those days when Cameroon Calling was still Cameroon Calling in CRTV, in radio. Every Sunday, he would call me, we would sit, listen to everything. And I used to admire the way some journalists would speak, the kind of word they use, and so on and so forth. And from there to the advent of the TV, you know, it still goes back to the responsibility where parents do not censor the kind of information their children consume, be it from the standard media or the social media. Those information need to be censored. There is nothing like compromising or talking about right of children, because those things that they call right of children that the Cameroon government are rectifying and is trying to implement in Cameroon is leading to more violation of other people's rights. Because what they call right of children, rights should go with responsibilities. We cannot talk about the right of a group of people who are not responsible, who are not conscious of their rights, who do not even know what the rights stipulate, who are not even being taught the rights. Because the funny thing in our education curriculum and system is that they will talk about children's rights. Where and at what point in the system of education that I know, be it the French system or the English system, that they are teaching that, okay, when you are between this issue, this is your right, this is your right, this is your right. But these are the limitations to your right. Good. These are the limitations to your right. And this is the obligation, because in the African Charter for the welfare of the child and protection of the child, they talk of it is forbidden for a child to be enlisted into army. They have not specified the age. That means an 11-year-old adult could be enlisted. So children need to be, first of all, schooled on those rights, the limitations to those rights, their own obligation. But when that is not done, how can you be implementing what the people who you are implementing for themselves do not know? That is completely contradictory. And it is from there now that these children don't even know. And you see, Cameroon has a very funny laissez-faire system that is really destroying this country. If you look at the kind of thing that the content that children consume in cable networks and TV, sometimes the thing just make me angry. Like, I have talked this with a couple of friends, parents, and so on, that you should not always allow children to be on dangerous content on TV. A child is herring to go back to, generally, it is like a general, some kind of mindset. I don't know where this is coming from. A child is herring to go back home, to go and watch telenovela, telemondulu, tele this, tele that. And that is their topic of discussion the whole night. They are watching erotic, sexual contents, things that are not, it is rated 21 plus, but a child of 14 is watching and then there is no control about it. Because for me, in as much as there's micro control, which starts from the family, there is a policy that countries that ratify laws that are being created at conventions in Western countries, they check it if it suits the context, if it suits the population, and if it adapts to the very culture and the foundation and values of the society before it is being implemented. You cannot just take something that do not befit to your society. You want to come and implement it in the context that is completely different. So this laissez-faire system has made children to be open to all these funny channels in different cable networks, all these social media networks, because, and please let parents always keep this, and this is very common in this Yaoundé Douala, this issue that if you pass GCE, I'll buy you iPhone this. If you pass O level, I'll buy you iPhone this. My junior sister knows. She's in university level 2. I bought her phone back in last year when she was in university level 1, Android phone. Since from 1 till that time. Because I knew the effect of such a content. And I could always proud to tell her peers that that had a very serious role to play in her life as a young girl, in a kind of difficult context. Because you as an individual, you have to study and understand the context of your society, and then now you are the one now to decide what to give, because the mind only gives back what it gets, what it's been fed with. So parents need to always avoid this thing. I'm going to buy you Android this, you are spoiling these children, or you are not helping them. Because what they are doing with phone, oh my God, phone like that is a whole world on its own. So there is generally a collective responsibility to restore hope in children, to restore hope in the next generation, to revive those ethics, values, principles that have been lost both at home, in school, and the greater responsibility still lies with the government that we think have failed as a state, as a government which is supposed to be structured, having a ministry with policies that is supposed to be implemented to make sure that the society standards are being respected. They have failed. So individually, as a society and as a people, we have our own responsibility, which we think is the only way out for us to have maybe a kind of decrease in the kind of situation we find ourselves.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. The parents are to blame because parents do not discipline their children in the house, and they do not no one child will ever talk to an elderly person rudely, or a child talking to a teacher anyhow. I am Serge, writing from Amanda. Good evening to you. Serge, good evening. Charity begins at home. Parents should train their children in a way that when they grow up, they will not depart from it. This is Felix, writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. And panelists, this topic is really captivating. I think parents have a role to play in the life of their children, but societal issues have gone a long way to influence this. Parents want to belong, to feel among the first their children, thereby making these children not to be respectful because their choices are not respected. This is common in university levels. Yes, sir, parents neglect to discipline their children because of pride and forgetting that education begins at home. I'm Junior, writing from the Southwest region. Good evening. My little contribution is parents and teachers should make the child understand that God is first. Hearing what is happening in our schools nowadays are so disheartening. The violence, the consumption of drugs, and also the government should put in strict measures to children who perpetrate the law. Okay. Good evening, sir. It's Paul from Mutengene. Your program is a good one. I'm a student also, sir. At times, let's look at the aspect of the teacher also, not just the students. Thanks. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Students are what they are because our society have decided to embrace the white man's tradition while remove corporal punishment from schools. How is the government protecting teachers? They are always silent. That's why these students keep doing what they are doing. Jude is writing from Konsamba. Stop calling. Now, let's look at the aspect of moral education in our schools. Beyond just teaching the subjects, do our teacher go that extra mile to also talk to the students away from strictly dispensing lectures of their respective subjects? Our guidance counselors also, are they helping matters?
Our guidance counselors are not helping matters because they've decided to be more of an office than the field. Because to the best of my knowledge, I believe the guardian counselor has a lot of role to play in terms of moving around the school, in terms of getting involved in groups of students, in terms of putting the ears on the ground, in terms of knowing what the students are up to, like do an opinion poll within the school and get to find out what are the emergency things that are supposed to be said. And the guardian counselors also have decided not to upgrade their position because whether we like it or not, social media has come to stay. It is a bitter reality. Like Fabrice said, that if we buy phones, we should know the age. If you don't buy it, they'll get it from a friend. They'll watch it from somewhere. It's normal. It's everywhere. But the issue should be the education.
But even if they have to take it from a friend, it's different from having it, because when you have a phone, you spend almost all of your time with your phone. Yeah,
you spend it, but you have a similar effect. I'll give an example. In my days, we didn't have this PlayStation game. But most of the times, I'll leave school and go and meet a friend at the PlayStation game. But we didn't have it. So it has a certain level of effect. But fortunately, I have a mother that will beat you even when you have not done anything wrong, which corrected me. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that we should invest more on education and educating these people, because whether we like it or not, we are in a technological way where education is delivered via the social media network, via the phones. We had COVID-19. A lot of schools adopted this, the learning, the hybrid method of learning. We are moving to hybrid. We are moving the classroom away from the physical presence to a virtual presence. And how do we cope with this? So there needs to be a mechanism whereby we carry out education as far as social media usage is concerned. How many of these schools do carry out seminars on effective social media usage among their students? Very few. You rarely see a seminar or a conference organized by these schools about effective use of social media or impact of social media in the life of youth in Cameroon. You rarely see it, but you will see different kinds of seminars on seminars on seminars. And let me assure you that in my area or in my university, and whenever we go to secondary schools, we have a policy where we educate the students about the impact of social media. And from the small movement that we've done, a lot of students got to understand the impact of this social media network. They got to understand that there is what we call data. All what we are using on social media, we are providing data. So if the more the students understand that their data is not supposed to be outside, they are not supposed to be exposing themselves into certain level of data, the better. I will encourage schools like teachers, Mr. Kulio, that these teachers should update themselves as to what are the tools in social media, how to effectively use this social media, what are these websites that students frequently visit, what are the things that they can tell the student about this website. All this has an effect on the behavior of the students. Violence we are talking about today, most of these students got this violence sometimes not even from their parents, but from the social platform that they watch, from the movie they watch on their phones, from the kids they watch on their phone. And so what do we do as teachers? As teachers, you have that responsibility, first of all, to understand what social media is, because everybody will be saying social media, social media, social media, social media. What is it? And what are the effects? What are the merit and demerit? What are the checks and balances? There are systems like in US. You see that they are talking about guns control, guns control, guns control. There are mechanisms that have been put in place where they can actually control guns. There are softwares, there are websites that have been blocked for children not to use. The government will have a regulatory mechanism to put in this social media aspect. As we speak, each government has a right to control the cyberspace we have Antique. Antique has the right to control cyberspace. What are the content that we can easily access in Cameroon? Because there are some content that you cannot access in China because it's blocked. It's blocked by their cyberspace. It's blocked from their cyberspace. If we have a government policy that regulates and say, okay, cyberspace, what do we have? The same thing like with television. We have some countries in this African continent that there's some content, there's some TV channels that cannot gain access to their space based on the content that they have because it has been greatly regulated. But today we have all kinds of TV network that shows pornography, everything. We need government policy. So it's a two-way thing. While the teacher in school is educating, the government policies come in place to enforce and limit the students, and the parents themselves has come now and also continue with this education. You look at telenovelas. There was a point in time when petitions were going around. I don't know if Fabrice can remember that petitions were going around that government should stop telenovelas. And after that, the petition, nothing was said about it. And it did not even happen. And nothing happened. It's still there. You go to Ghana, there are some TV stations that cannot stream. You go to Nigeria, even Nigeria, there are some states that have restriction about some certain level of TV stations that cannot go in their network. Because we as government, we have the policies that we can reduce this. But if we don't do that, it's a problem. And above all, discipline masters too need education. The education that they need, and the guardian counselors, they need education in terms of organizing conferences on effective social media usage. Above all, the media too has a great role to play, because as we are doing it, this is one of the things that the media is supposed to do, about educating people on social media usage. What are the pros and the cons about the effect it has on the children's life, so that parents know that, okay, if I'm buying my child this phone, this is the effect that it will have on his life. This is a possible effect.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Is Tagen Donatien writing from Bomenda in the only solution to stop violence in our schools is through prayers. Jesus Christ is the only answer. Okay. Violence can be erased from our educational environment if the family goes back to do its responsibility. If our family is peaceful, our children will obviously learn how to respect elders. Teachers and our moral values will be rebuilt. If we can't go back to the family, nothing will ever get better with us. Nsomto Caleb is writing from Fundong. Good evening to all of you watching us from Boyo Division. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists. Like they say, charity begins at home. If parents can take up their responsibilities and play an effective role in the student's life, it can curb school violence. Let parents stop pampering students to an extent that you will beat a child in school and the parent comes to school and wants you never to touch his or her child again. These same children leave home poorly dressed, but their parents do not say a word, and a teacher tries to advise the student, it becomes a problem. Daisy is writing from Kumba. Teachers should also learn to ignore some of these situations. They shouldn't give students the pleasure to show them they are angry. They are very happy when you get to that state. Teachers should reduce stress, increase their lifespan, and avoid being stabbed so that they can stay healthy and alive. Lisa Montana writing from Yaoundé says, good evening, Mr. Liu. Parents have failed in their role as parents. And nowadays, our parents no longer censor what their children watch on TV or even what they discuss amidst their kids. Okay? Sumbele Kelvin writing from Kongsamba says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and your wonderful panelists. A nice topic. Violence started increasing when the government started copy cultures that does not reflect our own. When using a cane was allowed for teachers in school, teachers had respect. In those days, when we'll do something wrong and our parents tell us to do that, they will report to our teachers. We cry and beg. But today, a student knows teachers has no right to a cane, has reduced a teacher. Students are now the ones to beat teachers. Parents too are contributing a lot. Last year in Kongsamba here, a parent brought military in school because the child was given punishment. The government should build different schools for some of these top officials' children because they spoil the poor ones. Okay, good evening to you, Sumbele Kelvin From Kong Samba. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Knowledge is divine, therefore going to school is coming near the secret place with respectful professionals and well paid by their employers. That should be the talk of all parents. Please don't ask me what if the teachers are complaining for their dues. Max beginning writing from Dusseldorf in Germany. In the past, many persons think that when children were more than the parents, they would readily complain to teachers to discipline the child. The teachers have no respect before the parents and their children.
Not like parents going to teachers to discipline the child. One of the things we should equally realize is that after a particular age, it is always believed that a father cannot really discipline his own child at home using what we call the corporal punishment standard, which means the energy, the strength, the physique of the child is even comparing that of the father. The muscles have developed more than what the father used to manage. There are some of them you cannot stand again to do track and field with them. I can remember my mother used to run with me round and round the building, and at the end I would enter the house, then I would seriously be flogged. There's a period you try to even use a cane, the young man will use his hand on the cane and even take the cane off your hand. You will not be capable again. We have seen a lot of even chiefs, I'm telling you, from where we grew up, a chief could enter the school compound very early in the morning and ask all his children to come out, and they are flogged thoroughly in front of the school. You can imagine such a message that the son or children of the fund had been flogged one early morning in front of the whole school. Who are you, the son of who, that will not stay low at home and in school? Because if you do, similar punishment will be given to you. It equally, again, means that the society was at the time when what we call moral decadence have not really proved its negative want. It means that there was a certain standard of morality between parents and children, and then the support of the parents vis-a-vis the teachers. We have seen that several times. Today, parents will tell you that, don't even touch my child. I have the right over my child and to do what I want with him and not you. That is done at times publicly or at times self-attack in teachers' homes. It has just become a common malaise. I wanted to answer somebody who said that we should believe that Jesus Christ is the answer. And this is where African has hooked up himself and we cannot come out of it. We are talking about student and school, children in school, and we are talking about the church and the Christ. And in Africa, how many people really attend churches? How many people even have some churches located in those villages? But surely everybody wants a child to get to school. We are talking the reality of human life. There is also the reality about divinity, and divinity is at times given to those who have given access or have a reasonable access to it. We want to think that the parents somewhere, a father will not give instruction, do not keep late nights, stay home, or by 5, school ends at 3, you should be home by 3:30, and you find a father that always come home at 12 midnight at that same hour. In some families, even the story is the opposite. The father is at home, children are the ones coming late for their mother to open the door, or the junior ones to open the door for the children. It gives a negative impact within certain environment. Mothers and parents now thought that the fact that we should not flog or discipline children so hard, it is a time for them to get very low with their children, to a point where we think that the force of the children has overcome the force of the parents. It even unable. I used to talk to my students. A lot of time I take time to talk to them. I used to tell them, some of your parents are even unable to talk to you. Some of them are even afraid of you, that the things they may say you will get angry because you have proved to them that you are more higher than them. Yes, they have never been to the university. A lot of that don't even know what type of subjects or what volume of work you have in school. So they think that when you come home, they need to pamper you so that you can have a cold head to learn, not knowing that some of you are not even in class when classes are going on, not even knowing that some of you don't even know the names of some of your teachers giving lectures in the same school. I think that somewhere the obligations of us going towards the teachers is equally a legitimate right. When a father or a mother moves to the teacher to discipline the child, it gives legitimacy of that particular teacher over the child. But we are not talking of the awesome incident where a mother met the teacher and the child was flogged with pepper and a machete. Just imagine such extent again. I want to come very strongly to say that the concept of social psychology, if instituted in our school and what we have, you have something like guided counselors. I'm telling you that those people who put them in school now as guided counselors are the privileged Cameroonians. These are people who went to the ENS with a special mission. They are not ready to teach. They want some liberty of their own. A lot of guided counselors are not in the school to which they are attached. And even when they are present, such presence in school is epileptic. They come to school once a week and they believe that since they are not teaching in class, the student will meet them on Wednesday. If you meet on Wednesday, fine. Those teaching in Douala, maybe they are living in Manjo or in Banga with their husband. That's where they are. And this is what we don't know. The guided counselor position in Cameroonian schools today, and even in ENS, is reserved mostly for the females. And I ask the question, why so many females at the level of guided counseling when we know that this particular duty is called on those who are readily available and capable of serving? Women really have more than triple function. They have to take care of their homes, they have to take care of school, their job, and other social needs. It makes the guided counselor position just an empty position in a lot of schools. They are present, appointed by the state, but several times they are not on seat. And to what extent they do so? Can we, as even teachers, carry out a collective effort of finding some time in their lectures to educate the citizens about good conduct and morals? We were talking of morals here. I want to tell you that in the new program, the Ministry of Higher Education, for those who are doing professional education, have it moral and civics or ethics education. And it comes now that President Pobia is trying to respect his 40 years engagement taken in 1982 and only become a reality 2 or 3 years ago. Civics education should be part of academic teaching. Psychology or social psychology should be part of teaching. Since parents don't have time to talk to their children, social psychology can even be made a compulsory subject so that all students can attend such classes.
Good evening, Mr. Liu and the crew on board. The state of our country should reconsider religious certificates as an obligation for children in their CV. Alexander is writing from Tico. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to everyone. Parents have failed, especially in this our zones. I will only tell a teacher to ignore any rascal students and even walk away. If I'm in class and they are not ready to respect, I will sign my period and leave. They are the ones at the loose. And that is why we have weak and criminals in positions. They go to school, refuse to learn, threaten teachers. Tomorrow they will use money buy concourse. Annie Yefon is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Leo. And all in the studio, the topic is very imperative. Moral decadence amongst schools. Stop calling, please. Become the abnormal normality. The causes of this is a falling society. From parents to the society, corruption has promoted the sale of drugs exponentially worse amongst young people. Unfortunately, teachers are the victims because they are with these children every day. It's time to take harsh methods, especially on students victimizing teachers. Why was moral education eliminated from these schools? Thomas is writing from Bonaberry. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This is Tildin writing from Boya. What we see happening in Yaoundé and most other parts of the country is mainly because our leaders haven't made studies a priority to us. Students will disrespect his teacher and careless about the impact because he knows that even if he drops out, he will still be equal with someone who has attended the higher heights in education. It hardly happens in other regions. This one's Madame Bessem says the topic is good. I remember back at high school, we were beating at the gate for coming late, irrespective of the fact that we were dropped by our father. He said, oops. Yeah, so many messages are disturbing me. I can't read. Reverend Kum Divine from Bole Bakundu says, good evening, bro. The problem begins from the family. We have to discipline our children right from the house, okay? Mr. Leo, good evening to you and panelists. I love your debate for the day. Democracy is the cause of violence in our schools today. I'm Christopher, writing from Enugu in Nigeria. Good evening, sir. It's Junior from Boya. Actually, the problem is not the social media. It's what they sit and discuss with friends and also their relationship with their parents, okay? Good evening. My name is Chinyere from Boya. The only way to resolve this issue is for the parents to take precautions on their children, because as a parent, it's their responsibility to know how, what, and where their children are going. Most of us need our parents' guide, because training starts from our homes, home training. If a child is not well trained, he or she will be influenced by illegal activities in the society. Yes, but is there need also for parents to create some time to be with their children? For example, the weekends, why not occupy the children, taking them out? Even if you were poor, you could still take your children to eat puff and beans together as a family, or just walk around, and then they know that at least you are with them.
Yes, Mr. Leo, it's very important. We will keep telling the parents that be a good parent, do your own part. Do your own part of the work, so that, you know, parenting is not only the person who have given birth to a child. Parenting has to do with someone who have responsibility of overseeing the success nurturing of someone under his or her care, be it your junior sister, be it your cousin, anybody under your care, or your own child, or the child of any of your relatives, or even an orphan that you have decided to help, or an adopted child. So we should always have that responsibility of providing our best in terms of acquiring education, in terms of checking the children, in terms of family love, in terms of family care. But do not mistake family love and care for tolerance and laissez-faire, or children's rights and things that will impact negatively the life of the children, because you have given them more than they deserve at a particular time and stage in their life. Meanwhile, saying that, I will still come to reiterate that let's not fool ourselves. You see, we are in a society where we have those who are in power do not have any sense, and those who have sense are not in power. And that is why there is a lot of tolerance to evil, tolerance to bad things in our society. Because when you look at those who are holding certain posts of responsibility or appointed by the high instruction system that is existing, which is the system of governance that had been in the country for the last decade, you will bear with me that this is also responsible for the issue of lack of respect at the level of the school milieu, where a teacher is tapped, no investigation is open, nobody is punished, everything stays calm, no statement from Ministry of Secondary Education, no statement from delegate, nothing. It's as if it's like you look at the triviality, the levity at which they treat the matter. You begin to question yourself, you begin to ask yourself if really the life of such an instructor matters. And it puts the instructors or the teachers in a very weak side, in a very weak position, because they will say, but the student will say, the other teacher was tapped. Did you see any measure taken against that person? No. Simply because the child's father, parents, relatives are having positions in the government, and these people who are having positions in the government are having positions that they did not merit. They did not deserve it. It was never competitive. It was never elective. They never put 2 or 3 people to compete for it justly, fairly, with the conditions of competition for such a person to climb there. And that's why they themselves are encouraging children to go around and do this kind of unwanted and wanton activities, which at the end produce more violent people that are taking up leadership in an unjust manner. So it's a collective failure of a system with its education system, moral values, that is affecting the whole society, and the education sector is also victim of a failed state, a failed system, and a failed government, which at the level of the Popular Action Party, we are doing everything within our capacity to dare to change the narrative, to dare to compete with them, to dare them, that let them put the competition fair. Let them not use state resources and state mechanisms and use all kinds of measures in order to make sure that the competition favors them. I always want to take this good example of something that happened to Cameroon, which is a good thing, the match between Cameroon and Nigeria. If not that football has all its necessary rules and regulation that is stipulated, is put in place before any player gets to the pitch, we could not have said Cameroon have won Nigeria. But look at how painful it was for Nigerians to believe that Cameroon won them in that kind of tight match. And that is because the competition is put on basis of equal opportunities, strict rules that everyone must respect. That is the kind of rules we want to be at Elekam. And let Elekam officials hear this, because the problem of this country is governance, and governance will fix so many issues, including the education system.
Okay. What should be the core assignment of parents and teachers today, because the situation is not getting any better?
I think schools should put in strict measures for parental engagement. Parental engagement in the sense that if you are called up for a meeting for the school, within a year there are 3 meetings. If you cannot attend 2 of these meetings, then they will remove your child from that school. I think it's going to be create a good situation where the parents can actually come to the school and understand what's happening. And secondly, schools should take school board meetings serious, that is PTA meetings serious. And PTA meetings, if they're taken serious, it will help to give them feedback. Above all, schools should also create an open door, an open day within at least 3 times before the academic year ends, for invite the public to come and give them what they expect, or the situation in which they think that the teachers can better help the society, and they share like a share of knowledge, because there are people within the society who are knowledgeable to give their own experience as to how teachers can handle violence in school, as to how teachers can help educate these children. But because there is not that open door policy, so they should create, I think, 3 times a year that, okay, maybe we are opening up our doors for stakeholders to come and teach teachers how to handle violence and the rest. Above all, also the parents themselves should understand that it's a triple helix system, whereby we have the parents, we have the teachers, and we have the society and the government. These are the 3 arms, the triple helix, so that everybody has to do his own role. The parents should understand that not everything the children tells them that their teachers did in school or said about them is true, because a snake seen by one person is a python. Imagine that your child come and tell you that my teacher insulted you, that he insulted me, and say your father is a useless man. Parents just go to school, and so these things need to, the government too on the side has a role to play. The government needs to establish policies that will be deterrent factors. That is, if you are a parent, you stop in school and attack a teacher, it should be treated as grave as murder. I'm sure it will reduce the level at which parents invade schools. It will make parents understand that we are in an educational milieu and not in a hooligan system. Bernard Fallon said education, that they said a university is like a university is not for the mindless mob but for the talented 10. And in his book, and I quote, that school is not for mob but for talented people. If you are going to school, you are not going to a fighting competition, you are going for education that can be both spiritual, that can be holistic and also can be physical. So my raison d'etre is that parents, teachers, and stakeholders will harness a better way to work together. Social media has come to stay. Government, media regulate our social media space, and also the kind of telenovela channels we watch. You have that power. Other nations have done it. We can do it and make Cameroon a better place.
Okay. Yes. What is the assignment for you and myself, parents and teachers?
Yeah, one, we have said a lot here, home parenting. Parents should provide some time for their children, and parents should even go as far as checking the peers, the group their children live or move with. We should make that. How many parents visit even the schools to find out the lifestyle of their children while on campus? That one too is necessary. Somewhere I begin to think that the government has a role to play. A lot of these offenses are committed more in gigantic, or what we call more of the public populated secondary schools. There is a need. When you go to Europe and other advanced economy, there's what we call campus security. The minimum of security should be placed in some schools to make sure. I believe if at this time that particular child, we were told that he went home then came back again to the principal's office. We don't know to which extent a child will leave campus, then come back again. It is sad. If this particular incident was happening in the presence of a police officer, because we are all afraid of men in uniform, in more developed and advanced states, there is what we call school guards, and I believe we should get on. We have a lot of police officers spending time in bars and snacks, drinking beer, when there is a lot of duty they are supposed to uphold. The police forces are called maybe to be on campuses. Why not? If we can put minor police posts around major carrefours, there is a need for also police posts in some major secondary schools around the country. This will help equally bring order on campuses. Somewhere, we might equally learn to behave like those in North Korea or South Korea, where students are not even advised to come to school with a bag, which means that from the time you are entering, you leave everything on campus and you move home. They have few books in school which they consult, and the other books which they use on daily basis, very few are taken home. You are given right to go home with a book, meaning you don't come to school with a bag. You come to school maybe with 2 books held on your hand. It is easy for security details to be known about such a candidate when we know that a lot of bags carry a lot of drugs, alcohol, and other wasted type of drugs. We need to get into a level where we transform. If today we are in 2022, it equally gets us a duty that the educational atmosphere is changing. Can the state equally adapt to changing behavior, or what we call the rise in youth's exuberance? A lot of youths want to taste and try to see other things. Gangsterism on campuses. Can we equally try to discourage this type of heroic admiration? Those who think they are leaders in campus, a lot of times those students who do what they are doing is because they want to gain that popularity from their peers, and they want to be applauded. They don't want to be humiliated, because after that they have a lot of talk behind. How could madam talk to you and you submit like this? You would have just send her off or give her a serious slap. A lot of such counseling will do us much at home. Some parents too should try to put a lot of control in terms of changing school. A child has been moving from one school to the other and knows that if sent out from this school, he will gain admission in another school. The report card in the past was the basis of evaluating whether a child is even fit for schooling. And so we used to take that. Today, some school even admit children or students without even a list of the paper. The student just declare, I was in the other school in Form 4, and so in this class, I want to be in Form 4 now, or if it's going to Form 5, on that basis, the private school will tell you that they need the money more than the student. And so a lot of times, a lot of things we need to take into consideration. Can we really institute discipline? Discipline in many Anglophone schools at times too must not be flogging. We need the moral side of it. There are students that when certain teachers send them out of their course, you start pleading. By the next evening, you come kneeling. Can we get into with psychological part of discipline? Some parents can do that heavily. You can even seize the phones they are using. Don't give them access even to the television, and you'll find that they become so sober after 1 week. They become like they are sick, meaning you have given a sanction which is even stronger than punishment. If you flog them, let me say, if you flog them, it might end just for a while. But if you take a phone or stop them from touching the television. In the olden days, our parents used to own cupboards that have keys where the television is placed, and he is the only person to open the cupboard and place on the television. A lot of such access can be made if you realize you are not regularly at home.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and panelists. Who is responsible? The society is responsible. Parents, teachers, weak school rules and regulations, corruption, laxity in meting out punishment to students, etc. What can be done is parents and teachers take their role strictly, and societal laws be revisited. Management may judge former student of GTHS Owum. Greetings to you and the family, the wife and everybody, the children in the house, and also in passing to His Royal Majesty in Jimbong Samuel there in Womb, and everybody watching us from Menchum Division. The Womb Emmanuel says many people are for the idea that the part 2 of yesterday's program should be made also on what the government has done and what they have failed to do. We are going to be looking at that maybe tomorrow. We are out of time. We want to say thank you to you, Dr. Akko, John Akko, and also to you, Fabrice Lena and Tamai Jarvis. We want to thank all of you who took time off to watch this edition of the program, not forgetting you, the production team. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.